Coach RedPill, and I'm here with Mr. Metokur, also known as the Internet Aristocrat, also known as Jim, a legend in the YouTube community. And he's been very kind to me and has very thoughtfully and kindly agreed to have a conversation with me. And hopefully I won't be one of his Tumblrisms. That's all. That's my minor hope. That's all I can hope for in this conversation. Jim, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Just getting over the slight end of a cold, so my voice might be a little bit off. But aside from that, I'm doing great.
Well, yeah, but you have to take the right drugs. See, you take the right drugs, and you'll be fine.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I'm loaded down with Sudafed, so what better way to start the day, kind of thing, huh?
NyQuil and Sudafed. I mean, that's what I'm on right now, as a matter of fact. So good to know. Good to know. You know,
it's got a powerful kick to it.
Yes, it does. You know, the Green Goblin really works. Don't you know it?
Yeah, it'll knock you right on your butt. Yep.
Yeah. That's why they call it the Green Goblin. Anyway, I'm so glad that you're on, and in all seriousness, you really are a legend in the YouTube community, and I wanted to jump right into something that I think that I personally am very interested in hearing your opinions as to where you think YouTube is going, because, you know, we've all heard about the adpocalypse, we've all heard about the restricted stuff that's been going on, and I'm genuinely interested in what your views are insofar as the future of the platform is concerned.
I guess my vision for where the future of the platform is, I think what we're seeing is a kind of a muscling in by corporations that were kind of more in the realm of television.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's not just advertisers. I think that's the actual television companies that are producing content. And I think they're looking for ready-made platforms that they can just easily move into that have a pre-installed base. And I think kind of with the adpocalypse and just YouTube in general with their terms of service and kind of their guidelines and where they're going, I think they're trying to ready it up. I think we're going to see a very bizarre merger of kind of older media and newer media with them trying to shift on over into it. And I think that's going to push out a lot of the independent people that were looking for the, I guess, advertising model to pay for them. When I kind of look at television stuff, numbers are down. I mean, most kids, most people, when they want to watch some entertainment, they're going online to do it now. They don't want to watch television. Even if you're looking at television shows presented online, you know, even through separate platforms like a Hulu or a Netflix or whatever. But I think a lot of these companies, they look at YouTube and they think, you know, my God, all the demographics that are hitting that, you know, we're talking prime numbers, right? The real people that we want to hit, the 18 to 35-year-old male, the money demographic is there. So it'd be great if we could just move in. So, I mean, you see deals with, was it Casey Neistat, the one that did the CNN one for $25 million?
Yeah.
See,
they bought the audience. I mean, I see no other reason for that deal.
Right. So, I mean, you've got these kind of people getting set up to kind of be stuck around. But I don't know. I guess have, I think if you were a YouTuber right now, and you thought, I'm going to use the same kind of model that people use the last 3 or 4 years, where I'm going to make a bunch of money doing ad revenue, and I'm going to grow my audience, and I'm not going to have any, you know, real opposition. Maybe I'm not saying anything super offensive, but just a little bit edgy. I think that's those days have passed. You need to find an alternative model to pay for your brand. I guess you can't rely on advertisers to do it for you.
I would certainly agree with the first part of your of what you said, that the corporate media seems to be rolling into YouTube, trying to co-opt the audience that pretty much came to YouTube via word of mouth and embedded videos over the last decade and a half. When did YouTube start? 2004, and so that seems eminently reasonable, and that of course shows the success of YouTube as a platform. Regardless of whether it's making money for Google or not, it's getting the eyeballs. And so the corporate media is clearly losing out an audience, and so they're moving to YouTube. The thing I object to, insofar as YouTube is concerned, is something that I objected to the generalized economy, which is, you see, you have the centralization, a monopoly, basically, of one platform for an entire industry. And that, I find, is exceedingly dangerous. Because, you know, there's VidMe, yes, of course, but VidMe is a very, very small platform when compared to YouTube. And realistically, there's no competitive platform that can, you know, even comes close to YouTube. And we see that in just about every sector of the economy, not just online stuff. And so I object to that on principle because I think that the lack of diversity in terms of options for businesses is very bad, because you have what happened with the apocalypse. YouTube just decided that, no more ads for you guys, and that was that. No appeal, no way to compete, no way to jump ship and go to a different platform that would offer a better deal. No competition, which I think is bad. Now, so I think that you're absolutely right that they're all coming to this platform and that YouTube is becoming the monopoly of online content. I think also, and I agree with you, that the ad revenue, that gravy train is gone. I don't think that independent producers are going to be able to, take advantage of that. Sorry about that. Oh, it's the police.
Okay.
They've come for me finally. Oh no.
They've tracked you down, have they?
Yeah, they have. But anyway, in the few minutes before they come to arrest me, but they're British. They'll wait while we finish here. No, yeah, well, they're nice. They don't even handcuff you when they arrest you. Like last night when they arrested me, no handcuffs. They were just, please, sir, get up off the ground, clean off the vomit, get in the car, please. It was like that. Anyway, kidding aside, the issue of adpocalypse, the ad revenue is not coming back to the independents. That seems clear to me. And I think that YouTube just realizes that insofar as the smaller content creators, they don't have to share the revenue. Where are they going to go? Even people you would think are relatively large, that have maybe 1 million subscribers, where are they going to go? That's the thing. And so I think YouTube, with the adpocalypse, realized, hey, we're not paying them any more money, so we don't have to pay them any money of the ad revenue. We don't need to share it with them, and they're not. But I think that they're going to share it with a privileged few, such as Casey Neistat, such as the Young Turks. And so, I think that my vision, and you tell me if you think it's wrong, Casey Neistat is trying to do sort of pretending to be an indie, even though he's a part of CNN, right? I don't know if you saw recently, he had sort of a little bit of test video of what this new news organization that he's doing with CNN is going to look like. And it looked very DIY, almost purposefully naive and childish looking, right? To really accentuate that DIY, rather. Oh man, I'm dumber than I realized. DIY aesthetic, but you see what I mean?
I think I know what you're talking about. There was a marketing campaign. God, this was it's really famous. It was actually atrocious by Sony when the PlayStation Portable came out.
Right.
Called "All I Want for Christmas is a PSP."
Okay.
And it was a viral marketing attempt to make it look like some underground hip hop duo that lived in this crazy New York apartment. And all they wanted was a PSP for mom and dad, so they did a cool rap video with moose heads on the wall and step ladders for no reason and slinkies everywhere. And somebody easily figured out that this was Sony trying to viral something. And it was so cringy. It was so bad when they try to do that. If you have the money, just use the money to make yourself look like you want the thing to look good. Don't try to do the, oh man, I'm just one of you guys. I'm just a regular Joe, with my handheld camera and my cardboard set. I mean, come on, Neistat. You got $25 million.
Yeah, exactly.
You can afford to make it look nice.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, that DIY aesthetic is looking so cheapy that it's looking like he's greedy, that he's just not wanting to let go of any of that $25 million to add a little production value to his thing. Yeah. But I think that more and more of that kind of bullshit, lying media approach is going to proliferate. Because I think that the corporate suits figure that, it has to look crappy, but they don't recognize that the content itself is honest. For instance, I always think of Shoe on Head. I think that her videos look crappy as hell, but there's something oddly compelling about her. But it's not because of the crappy way that she films the thing. It's her. I mean, she's got that she's interesting, and that's why you want to watch her. But I think that the corporate people are sort of copying the wrong things. I don't know. But be that as it may, you would agree, you said, and I agree with you, that the advertising revenue is not coming back for the indies. What do you think is going to happen?
Oh, no, that's gone.
Yeah. What do you think is going to happen to the medium-sized people like Philip DeFranco? Because frankly, Philip DeFranco is I see what he's trying to do, and I'm really looking forward to what his project is going to turn out to look like. But I think he's not going to make it. I mean, I hope I'm wrong. But I think that with the adpocalypse and the fact that they're not giving him any ad revenue, I think that he's screwed. What do you think is going to happen to mid-sized guys like DeFranco?
Now, when you're talking about DeFranco, he was the one that was talking about starting up his own site, right? Or am I
Right.
thinking somebody else?
Yeah. He was the one.
Okay.
Yeah, he
Okay.
like he basically
Yeah,
wanted
that's a pipe dream. I'm just going to be honest. I mean, I know that's pessimistic to say, but I've seen people attempt it before. I think TJ the Amazing Atheist tried to do his own video sharing platform that lasted all of 8 months before it just shut down and everybody got angry.
Yeah.
And I've seen big corporations attempt to do this. You talked earlier about kind of how monopolistic YouTube is, right?
Right.
Or at least Google is in owning this one kind of video platform delivery system. Nobody else can really touch it right now.
Right.
Stage 6 was around. They were backed by Divx, and Divx, had a lot of money. I mean, they were basically going toe-to-toe with Hollywood when it came to DMCAs, and they had high-definition video, no limits on uploads. It was a really, really big site with millions and millions of users. And this was right around the time that Google had bought out YouTube from the original owners. And Divx folded. Now, granted, there were reasons for it. I mean, they had come up with some ridiculous boardroom fight that led them to kind of go down that decision. But even at that point, it was a losing proposition, looking at kind of the money that it was draining from them.
Yeah.
It was just insane. There was no way they could, even if they worked out a deal with Hollywood, even if they got the DMCA thing resolved, even if they got advertisers in there, they had a deal with Yahoo for installing, their search engine, that kind of stuff. Didn't come close to covering the cost of even running the site for a month. I mean, it was just, they were just losing money. And another thing, too, I find really interesting, kind of talking about the monopoly aspect, was it it was like late 80s, early 90s that, and I was talking about this last night, Bill Gates was getting hammered. I remember Reno, he was getting like $1 million charge a day, right? Because they were upset that he was pre-installing his browser on a computer with his operating system, and they thought that was unfair.
Right. Yeah.
But we're looking at Google now, right? Who not only is going to make their own laptop, install their own browser, but then they're going to own the search engine you use and the website you go to.
Yeah.
So how is it Gates got hit for millions of dollars a day for doing what he did, and Google seemingly walks away unscathed for doing something that's much larger than that when it comes to kind of a monopoly?
Well, what's happened is that ever since the 2008 global financial crisis, the regulators have been just gelded. I mean, they're not doing their jobs because they actually don't dare. Because, like for instance, in the banking sector, all of the banks are, if they were actually audited, they'd be declared bankrupt. Okay. I mean, if they were audited on the up and up, and not with inflated prices insofar as the assets that they hold in their capital cushions. And this goes into antitrust. The antitrust is completely gelded, and because they're too big. They're simply too big, and Google is too big. And Google is now so big that it would be crazy for the DOJ to go after them. They don't dare because they've been co-opted. And so, but that's another conversation. What I'm interested in, you did a really great video about CNN. I mean, you were fucking, and I completely agreed with that. Okay, and I mean they were basically blackmailing this Han asshole Solo guy.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody needs to go over it. I think everybody knows the story. And if you don't know it, go out and Google CNN blackmails a person, and you'll find all you need to know. So, you were really deep into Gamergate. I'd ask you two things. Would you mind doing a very brief recap of Gamergate? And I wanted to ask you if you feel that, because my sense is that Gamergate was sort of like the canary in the coal mine, insofar as the press pushing a narrative that is different from reality. So could you recap Gamergate? And go ahead.
Sure. Gamergate kind of started when information came out about a certain indie developer and the relationship with people in the gaming press, not just developers, but people actually reporting on things. They had a relationship, they had dated, they got positive coverage because of it, and you could kind of see these backroom dealings. People got upset with that, and there's a whole backstory too to people being upset with kind of a narrative being pushed in gaming press for years before that, and so it was kind of like the tipping point, I'd say, for people getting upset enough to say, what, enough of this. But it was within 1 month of that that you really saw collusion. Because not only did you find out that there were backroom chats where all of these different journalists got together to talk about what they were going to cover, they all almost on exactly the same day released the same article saying gamers are dead.
Mm.
You don't need gamers anymore. You don't need your audience. They're terrible people. And it was so bizarre to see, 20 or so different outlets all say the exact same thing at the exact same time.
Which is exactly what happened with Milo Yiannopoulos and the whole pedophilia accusation. That stuff that when he was on the Drunken Peasants, that had been around for a while. I mean, over a year, I think almost 2 years. And then all of a sudden, over one weekend, bam, they all went after him, and all of the stories were all lined up to totally obliterate him. You see why I see the parallel between Gamergate and the current media environment.
Well, what floors me is I heard that was, the 16-year-old sent the tape in kind of thing, but I also heard that that was part of opposition research, which floors me because I was hearing the number bantied about that, about $250,000 was put into trying to take Milo down through opposition research.
Jesus.
And if you're telling me that they spent $250,000 to find 2 publicly available YouTube videos, how lazy are these people, and where do I get that job? You can pay me $250,000. I could have shown you. You could have given it to Milo. He could have shown you the links. You know what I mean? That was up for the Drunken Peasants was up for a year and a half, and the Rogan interview was up for about 7 months.
Right.
And it's amazing to me that they finally were like, oh, look, here this is. But you're right. It was it most definitely was coordinated. They saw kind of Milo, and they didn't like him, and they were looking for something they could really nail him with. And when they got their hands on, these 2 interviews, and they could take the context of some of the things that he said and put it together and be like, here you go. And thought it was going to have a big effect on him. One of the interesting things, though, is from, what I understand. I mean, even though Milo has been deplatformed from Twitter, even though he's gone from Breitbart, if you go look at his Facebook, he's got like 2.5 million followers on there.
Really?
So, his popularity is enormous still. I mean, he's doing his book release. He's starting up a private media company. So their attempt to completely destroy him, I don't think has succeeded, because I think they've underestimated his pull and his appeal, especially kind of within the group that follow him or are interested in him. But it definitely was coordinated, at least getting that information out there. And I believe it was opposition research, and I believe it was intentional.
Oh, and no question that it was coordinated. The thing that I find interesting is that it's exactly what happened with articles you were saying about Gamergate, where they all came out with the same articles, where it's basically as if the press is pushing a narrative, and they are all working together, and they all agree on just about everything, and they are trying to distort reality for their readers and viewers, for their audience. They're basically gaslighting, and I'm like, how do we stop this? Because in a real sense, Gamergate never ended, right? I mean, you still have these gamer journalists who are still pumping out this crap. I don't really follow games, so I wouldn't know. So I'd have to ask you and defer to your judgment. I mean, but is that accurate? I mean, are they still around, the same old people, and still pushing the narrative, as it were, that differs from reality?
Well, yeah, this was always one of the problems, too, kind of when dealing with game journalism is they'd leave one site just to move to the next one. But since everybody knew each other and there was no real professional boundaries between corporations and individuals, it just became a game of musical chairs. Oh, I'm not working at Kotaku. I'll just move over to Rock, Paper, Shotgun. Oh, I'm not working at Rock, Paper, Shotgun. I guess I'll just go over to Destructoid. So it was just kind of, shuffle over here, but we all know each other. We're all buddies. We can all do this. It doesn't surprise me that kind of behavior is there, and it doesn't surprise me that you'd see that in mainstream media. I mean, even, if you look at is it Project Veritas videos where he's going out and, getting all these clips and stuff. The interesting thing, the thing I found most interesting about that wasn't even what was being discussed. It was the fact that all these journalists were hanging out at the same bars. Like that that you could go into these bars in, the area, and all of them were just kind of there having drinks together and, bullshitting with one another. And it makes you wonder, well, how friendly is everybody? Do they all just hang out and drink? Are they friends? Do they go to ball games together? Do their kids hang out? What exactly is the relationship between people at CNN and the Washington Post and New York Times and MSNBC? How close are they? Because those relationships, I think, determine narrative spins and media pushes. And I definitely do see the parallels. I see what you're talking about. And it's just It's creepy, and it kind of goes back even to what we were talking earlier about, kind of with CNN and NISTAT, and kind of pushing into YouTube and wanting that platform. It feels like they know their I guess pull isn't as strong as it used to be,
Hmm.
and they think if they emulate what's popular now on the platform that's popular now, that will bridge the gap and fix it.
Yeah. The reason I was asking where the gamer journalists were now and how the relationships between gamers and the audience for those publications and those journalists, what the relationship was now, because I was wondering if there is a clear parallel between the two events, that is Gamergate and the relationship of the journalists, and now the current MSM and CNN and all that crap. I wanted to see if we could perhaps extend that analogy and see how the relationship has evolved, or if it stayed the same, whereby the gamer press is still pushing a bullshit narrative, SJW narrative, or politically motivated narrative, and the audience is still there and sort of like passively sucking it up. Because I mean, I don't know, because like I said, I don't really follow gaming. I don't quite understand gaming, to tell you the truth. I grew.
I think.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I think what we're seeing, and I think this was going on even before Gamergate, and I think this might even play a little bit into the MSM thing. But I think what we've seen with YouTube, especially as a platform, where you had game journalists who wrote about and reviewed product, right, and they release information, and then you saw all these independent people kind of come up, Let's Players, reviewers, people like Total Biscuit, and so on, and they started kind of drawing away that audience. And I think that there's a parallel there with mainstream media, and we're seeing alternative media. I think the same thing's kind of happening. But when you're looking at the gaming press, no, it really hasn't changed, to be honest. I mean, it's still just as bad as it was, even after Gawker lost the lawsuit. With Hogan and Thiel backing them. It just got sold to a new. Oh God, what is it? It's the Spanish.
Yeah, Univision.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, but same people still kind of working there. Same articles still coming out. They're still talking about the same stuff.
Yeah.
None of that's changed, and I think they're angry, to be honest. And I think they were angry for a while to begin with, because they see this platform and this audience being drawn away, and they're like, how can they do that? Why are they getting that heat? Why are people being drawn to it? So no, nothing changed. They stuck to their ways. I think they're still just as bad as they were to begin with.
But are the audiences
because they
smaller?
never really. Yeah, no, I'm sorry, I'm kind of meandering. I think I blame that on the Sudafed. But I think the audiences were always shrinking.
Okay.
People want content delivered from people they connect with, and game journalists just have kind of lost the plot.
Yeah.
And the guy that they're watching making the funny jokes with the goofy voices on YouTube is more interesting.
Yeah.
So they want to get their information from them, and I think that's the same with the mainstream media. Do I want to watch Anderson Cooper?
No.
Or do I want to watch somebody on YouTube who will tell me basically the same informational facts, if you could even call CNN giving you anything like facts, but will give me the same informational facts, but they'll do it in a funny way, or they'll do it in an entertaining way. And I think television's losing that audience too.
Yeah.
It plays into everything, really.
Yeah, I think that the mainstream media is they're just playing their cards very poorly, and also. Look, you were mentioning before how all the journalists hang out at the same bars. I don't have a problem with journalists all hanging out at the same bar. What I do have a problem with is that all of the journalists think the same. That is the problem. That there is absolutely no diversity of viewpoint. Because that's the thing that drives me up the wall about the left and social justice warriors and all that. They keep pushing diversity, but it's a superficial diversity. Oh, you're black. Oh, you're brown. Oh, you're yellow. Oh, you're white. United Colors of Benetton. But at the end of the day, that means nothing. It's what's in your head and how you express it. And that lack of diversity of opinion, that lack of viewpoint diversity just drives me crazy. Because when you have just a single point of view, you are going to get hit by reality hard, because you start believing your own bullshit. If you have somebody who believes different, he's going to challenge you. And by challenging you, your position becomes more robust, because you wind up shedding that which is not effective, that is not reasonable, that is just ridiculous and stupid, and clinging to that which is harder. Nassim Taleb wrote this great book, Anti-Fragile. I don't know if you've heard of it. I would suggest you read it if you haven't. Anti-Fragile is basically the notion that when something is put under stress, it becomes stronger. for instance, the skeleton structure, the bones, right? The more you exercise and the more duress you put on your bones, the stronger they get, the more healthy they get. The problem I'm having with the press now, the mainstream media, is that since they all think the same, they all see the world in the same way, nobody is challenging their views, and therefore they're becoming not merely complacent but soft. And so when they see different realities, they can't react. The election of Donald Trump is the perfect example of that. They didn't see it coming. They couldn't even conceive it. I mean, even to the final days, they were laughing about the possibility of a Trump presidency. You know, I'm not a fan of Donald Trump. I think he's a moron, right? Though I have to admit that between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, I preferred Trump because at least he wasn't going to go to war the second he took office, unlike Clinton, who clearly wanted that. But that's for another conversation. My point is, the press didn't see how popular Trump was because they were all thinking the same, going to the same bars, talking the same shit. And, and I think that that's the problem for audience members such as you and I. We don't, if we'd gone by just the mainstream media, we would have been just as blindsided. And a lot of people obviously were blindsided. I mean, you saw all those reaction videos of people complete meltdown over Trump, as if Trump were an actual Nazi or whatever. As if the day after the election, stormtroopers were going to march down Pennsylvania Avenue. I mean, it was insane. I mean, it was just. I found it incredibly amusing.
And the spooky thing for me, and the thing I've always wondered about is, do I want to attribute to the press the fact that they're idiots, or that they're more malicious than I might expect? When I look at the reaction to Trump and them saying consistently throughout the election, he has no opportunity. He'll never get the Republican nomination. He'll never get the presidency, right?
Right.
It was a message they consistently said on every single network. Now, is that just because they're so out of touch and they're so high on their own farts, they don't know what's going on? Mm-hmm. Or did they think that we have such power? I think, honestly, I think they knew he had a better chance than they were letting on. And I think they thought if we just keep saying he doesn't, we'll sway opinion and make it happen.
Wow, you're more cynical than I am. Hang on just a second. Hang on just one moment. So anyway, no, to go back to your point, I think that the mainstream media was not necessarily malicious, although I think that there were some people who had a shrewder idea of what was going on. Though I do believe that the actual Hillary Clinton campaign was completely convinced, truly gaslit by the media. I think that they really and truly didn't even have an inkling that Trump was going to win. I think that they cruised into this election thinking that all they had to do was spend money and divvy up the electorate like had worked in the 90s insofar as, market testing different messages for different groups. And, they ran a great campaign for 1996 and they lost. And they didn't address the concerns of most people, which is jobs and the economy and the fact that most people aren't making ends meet. And that's the thing that drives me crazy about the Democrats. By the way, I'm going to be doing in about 2-3 weeks. I'm going to be finishing up a really, really big video, and I'd appreciate if you give it a plug when I have it up. It's called The New Democrats, and it's about how the Democrats in early 90s, right? They saw that they were losing elections. They lost to Reagan badly twice in 80 and 84, and they lost again in 88. To George H.W. rather. And so starting in the early 90s, what the Democrats essentially did, and which is also what the New Labour Party did in the UK and renovated socialists in the European continent and in South America, is that they all essentially co-opted neoliberal economic policy. And so what you have now is that everybody believes in neoliberalism. That is free movement of capital, low taxes, unrestricted movement of labor offshore, rather, the hollowing out of the manufacturing base, and the idiotic belief that a service economy is a superior economy and a more advanced economy than a manufacturing economy, which is just dumb, but it doesn't matter why it's dumb. The important thing is, see, both parties, the left and the right, though they espouse superficially different aspects insofar as social policy, insofar as their economic policy, they're all in agreement. And it is this economic policy that has hollowed out the middle classes and the working classes and created a hollow economy where you have the top 10, 20% of the populace doing very well, especially the top 1%, the top 1% of the 1%. They're doing extremely well. But everybody else is, going down the tubes. You have the top 20% doing well and the bottom 80% with nothing. And it was that bottom 80% that voted for Trump. Working women, poor women, they all voted for Trump, and they voted in huge numbers. And so the whole, vote for me, I have a vagina thing just totally backfired with Hillary, because she wasn't giving them what they wanted, which is, meat and potatoes. And my point is, and I'm rambling here a bit, but
that's fine.
But my point is, see, the Republicans and the Democrats are pushing right-wing economic ideology. And the entire population has been led to believe that this is the only way. And everybody talks the same. They say, oh, I'm socially liberal but fiscally conservative. But that's the economic policies that we have are hurting our society. They are hurting the society in the sense that young people are graduating college with a huge debt load because of neoliberalism. This was predicted in '87, the famous Bennett hypothesis that, when you allow more government grants and more student loans, the universities are going to suck up that money, and the one who's going to pay for it in the end is going to be the student with a huge debt burden. This is exactly what happened. It was predicted 30 years ago. You have all these students graduating with all this debt, so it means that they can't start families until they're much older. They can't buy their first home until they're much older, if ever. And everybody's living paycheck to paycheck. And this is a recipe for poverty, because poor people tend to remain poor because they are not able to build a sufficient capital cushion to take more risks and save more money and go up the socioeconomic ladder. And so my thinking is that both parties believe the same economic policies, and there's nobody questioning this. And I'm not saying of going to Bernie Sanders socialism. I think that's stupid, but there is a different way to go about it in terms of decentralization, in terms of closing up borders and all the rest of it. But going back to tying this back into what the point I wanted to make is, the mainstream media still dominates the discourse, and therefore nobody is hearing any kind of alternative view as to how our economy and our society should be. It's only what these MSM people sell us. And I think that is a recipe for disaster for the society. I must have sounded like a fucking loon with this rant, but I get very hot on the collar about it.
That's fine. Let me try to unpack it a little and just address a couple of things. I agree with you. I think Hillary ran a campaign that was 20 years too late. Yeah, right?
Tough.
I also think that the Democrats, particularly with Clinton and Obama, tapped in not just so much with their messaging towards kind of middle class, working class, but also I think there was a kind of a luster or a PR that they put on it, and they saw that worked really well.
Yeah.
You had Bill Clinton playing the saxophone on late night TV. You had Obama being hip and cool on the internet. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And that really helped them. And I think Hillary thought, I'll just do the same. But she found out she was vastly unpopular with people online, and it did not work out for her.
No.
When you talk about economics, I agree. I think that everybody's getting a college degree. It devalues a college degree because now what makes you unique? You're leaving with $40,000, $50,000, $80,000 debt, and now you're paying that off rather than getting a home.
Yeah.
Rather than starting a family, rather than being an entrepreneur and beginning a business.
Yeah, exactly.
I think the really scary thing that's coming down the pipeline is automation and machination.
Yeah. Yes.
Totally
agree.
You're going to start to see industries get completely wiped out. I think it'll start with the service industry, really, with counterworking people.
Yep.
You see stuff like automated grocery stores run by Amazon, kiosks replacing workers at McDonald's. And I think for about 5 or so years, people will be like, well, it's not a big deal. It's just, those are just jobs we don't really care about. They'll find work elsewhere. But when you get automated driving, when you start getting, taxi cabs, when you start getting long haul truckers, when you start getting UPS and FedEx and the mail, using automated driving in combination with a drone to deliver it to your doorstep, you're going to see a lot of work disappear.
Yeah.
And these political parties had really better, I think, to be honest, a lot of people had really better start to look at that 20-year window ahead of us, because we're talking millions and millions and millions of people who had a profession for a very long time now having nothing.
Yes, exactly.
And that's a scary thought, because when you get millions and millions and millions of people already in debt because they just got out of college,
Yeah.
or already in debt because of a bad economy, and they just lost their profession and they have nothing else they can do, that's when people start getting angry. And when people start getting angry, things change very, very quickly.
Yes, it does. You mentioned automation. I'll tell you something. I'm from Chile, and about a year or so ago, I was up in a mine in the north of Chile. I went to see it. It was like a touristy thing. It was pretty cool, actually. Anyway, these huge mining trucks. I mean, to get into the cab to drive the thing, you have to climb these stairs, and it's like it's as big as a 4 or 5 story building. Okay, it's a huge monster thing.
They're
right?
huge.
Yeah, it's really incredible when you stand next to one. When you're standing next to the wheel of it, okay, and the tire of it, right, and your head reaches, it's lower than the axle of the wheel, okay, and you're like, holy shit, that means that this whole thing is 12 feet in diameter, holy cow, right? Do you know that they're all automated? They are all computer driven. There isn't a person driving these enormous trucks. And I'm talking about 30 of these trucks in one of these big mines, right? They're driving around, controlled by a computer. And, they have 0 accidents. 0. Because they have this thing down to a science, and it's just like they move from here to there.
I love that. I love the counter argument too I get when I bring this up to people, because they'll say, "Well, the technology's not there yet. Satellites are too unreliable. How would you handle it?" Are you kidding me? Companies, if they can save money, will innovate.
Yes.
If satellites are an issue, they will find a ground-based solution. If it's going to save them a nickel in the long run, they are totally going to do it. Why wouldn't they? They want the most profit possible.
Exactly. And so my point about the truck, and the reason I'm mentioning it, do you know that truckers are one of the largest, if not the largest, employers of people in the United States? What's going to happen with all those, 2 million truck drivers are out of a job? Where are they going to go? Because if they're doing it in these enormous mines, right? How long do you think it's going to take before they're doing it on trucks on the Interstate 5? You know what I mean? And it's inevitable. And my concern is that we as a society are not thinking through these issues enough, because these are issues that are going to affect all of the Western democracies. And we're going to have all of these unemployed people. And like you said, where are they going to go? What are they going to do? And the rich people are talking about, Zuckerberg and people like that are talking about a basic income, right? What, you're going to have like whole swaths of the populace on the dole and just sitting and watching TV and getting fat, like in WALL-E? Do you remember the movie WALL-E, where everybody's just fat as hell, and floating along, and they're doing nothing except drinking soda? Is that our destiny as a society? I mean, come on.
Well, how does that not terrify people? Zuckerberg personally terrifies me. I don't like the idea of a man who owns that kind of a platform, who has information access like he does to metrics and data of people's personal lives, using that, one, for his presidential campaign, because he's going to have incredible messaging. I don't think he's very personable. I don't think people like him very much.
No, he's an autistic asshole, but yeah, go ahead.
Right, but he's got the power of information. Data is power. Data is money. Yeah. And boy, does he have it when it comes to how am I going to run my campaign. But we're talking about a really bizarre situation. Yeah, do we want to create a generation that's going to grow up and basically be debt-ridden from college, have no possible occupation, and have to rely on government entitlements handed out from the guy that runs their social media website?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
That's basically what you're saying. It's fucking out of, it's crazy, and nobody's saying anything. Everybody's like, free market, live and let live. If it's not hurting anybody, it's okay. Fuck that noise. I mean, I'm sorry. I get really hot under the collar when this libertarian shit says that, the markets will decide. See, from my point of view, the market is a tool. It is a tool for a society to allocate resources in any given industry or market, right? It is not an end in and of itself. It is a tool to help a society, to help our society be a better, more just society. Howsoever you define better and howsoever you define more just, right? But it's not an end in itself. Okay, it's like sex. Sex is great, but it is a means to an end. Have a kid. It's not, you're not fucking all day. You're not attaching a mechanical vagina to your dick and walking around all day with it. No, it's for a certain period of your life, but there is more to your life than just that, and there is a purpose to it. I hope that you understand the metaphor, the analogy that I'm trying to make here. It sounds insane now that I hear it. Yes. I swear.
As far as like a free market goes, my opinion on that is any system which you create, regardless of what that system is, will be abused by a person if they can.
Of course.
And I'm all for a company trying to make the most amount of money they can, a free market. That's all great, but let's be honest, if there were no regulations at all, if I was running a business, I'd cut corners all the time. Why wouldn't I?
Of course.
If there wasn't some kind of regulation or oversight, you're going to get messed up chemicals in your shit. I'm going to sell you stuff that's dangerous. I don't give a fuck because I'm making more money.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So you need some kind of oversight. There has to be some kind of oversight, at least some regulation.
Well, I always think of it,
make sure that companies don't go crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. For instance, a specific example. Have you seen that Coca-Cola now? It used to have, I don't know in the States, actually. I haven't been in the States in a while. But in Europe, at least. You have Coca-Cola, and it's Coca-Cola Classic and Coca-Cola sugar-free, right? But the thing is, you can no longer really distinguish the bottles unless you're really looking for it. Before, at least in Europe, it used to be really shiny and clear that this was the sugar-free and this is the classic, right? But now you can't tell the difference because the chemical that they use to sweeten, the artificial sweetener that they use for the 0-calorie Coke, right? It's cheaper than sugar. So that's why they're using it. That's why they're pushing it, right? But here's the kicker. It turns out that, and this was in last year, some medical investigation, that they realized that chemical, that sweetener, artificial sweetener, yeah, sure, it's 0-calorie, but it blocks some enzyme or something or other from acting in your colon, and you actually get fatter from drinking the sugar-free soda than drinking the regular soda with sugar, right? So it's actually detrimental to your health to drink the sugar-free one. And
So let me guess. Coke, after hearing this information, thought instead of addressing that issue, let's go start a weight loss company so we get double the profit. We'll make them fatter with our Diet Coke without the sugar, and then we'll sell them the weight loss kit that'll get rid of it.
Well, I don't know, but I would, if you told me that Weight Watchers' major shareholder was Coke, I would not be surprised. But like
double down, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know about that part. But what I do know is that the regulators aren't doing anything because they're saying, oh, well, the sugar substitute is FDA approved, so it's okay. But it's making everybody fat. I mean, come on, this obesity over the last 20 years, I haven't lived steadily in the United States since 2001, right? But, I visit periodically, and holy shit, I mean, doesn't everybody see it? It's like somebody came with a pneumatic pump and just plugged it into every man, woman, and child in the country and, put in about at least 10 more PSI per person. I mean, holy shit, everybody's like a little Michelin man. What the hell is going on over there?
Well, yeah, and the crazy thing, too, is, I mean, everybody's become so sedentary. They don't want to go and do things anymore. Going outside's not entertaining. Let's stay home and use our a device instead. I mean, hell, that even plays back into the work. You get all these jobs automated, all this manual labor, and those jobs are gone now. I mean, everybody's going to get fat now.
Yeah.
There's not going to be a skinny person left in the country because they're all going to be sitting at home waiting for Zuckerberg to DM them their entitlements.
Yeah. Let me ask you something, Jim, like seriously. Okay, like how let's assume for the sake of the following that this automation shit is going to happen and a lot of people are going to be unemployed, right? Now, how would we go about absorbing that unemployment and this bullshit that the market will take care of itself? That's nonsense, because we outsource the manufacturing base insofar as like steel and metallurgy and mining and so forth and so on out of the United States to third world countries, Vietnam, China, India, and so on. And all those metal workers in the United States, they're out of the job and they're pushing jobs if they're lucky. They're greeters at the Walmart. I mean, their fate has been horrible. I mean, the fate of the blue-collar worker in the industrialized economies, the former industrialized economies of the West, is catastrophic. So the issue becomes, what happens with this new round of automation? Are we supposed to prohibit that, or what do you think would be a way to absorb all that unemployment? I mean, this is a genuine question.
Yeah, I don't think that it's going to be prohibited. Listen, anything that's more efficient, cost effective, and gives a bigger profit margin, a company will fight for, and they will eventually win on.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of pushback, and I think a lot of people are going to be mad, but it's going to happen. That's the reality. I mean, we can try to fight against it, but what are we fighting against? We're fighting against progress, right?
Yeah.
It's just the way of the world. As far as what happens to all these unemployed people, I see one of two things. A brighter path and a darker path. You look at history, and you see any country which exists, which goes from having a somewhat acceptable unemployment rate and debt rate to suddenly a massive debt rate and a huge amount of unemployment, and you know what happens.
Yeah, revolution.
Exactly. I mean, that's the end result.
Mm-hmm.
The positive, bright path that I see is we open up new industries. We have to come up with something that's completely unique and completely different than what we're doing now, that isn't manufacturing based or service industry based or technology based. What that is, I don't know. Maybe it's space exploration. Maybe we need to start just dumping money into that and training people to do all sorts of jobs related to rocketry and space hub stuff. I mean, I know that sounds really futuristic and far-fetched, but we're kind of on the cusp of it. I mean, personally, I think that space is going to be a big industry, and I think the nation that takes advantage of it first will be the one setting the tone for history for the next century. So, you've got people like, oh my God, I'm blanking on his name, SpaceX. What's his name?
Oh, yeah. Elon Musk.
You've got Elon Musk, and you've got NASA right now, too, even Trump talking about it. There's a lot of chatter going on about, maybe we should go to Mars. Maybe we should go to Mars. Maybe let's go back to the moon. Maybe we should make a space hub. Maybe we should do this, that, and the other. I know there are companies that are talking about buying the spent, fuel rockets,
Mm-hmm.
the ones that fall back down, and using them to make like space hotels. Like they're already there. Why not go up, refurb them, reattach them, make a little atmosphere, and start flying people up?
Mm-hmm.
I hope that's the salvation at the end, that might be coming, that we can create a new industry just for the purpose of creating a new industry and hope that we can build something off of it. I mean, there is value to be made. You have tourism, obviously, with something like that. People obviously are excited by exploration, mining potentially in the future if you can do it really well. But I think we're realistically at the point where the idea of having a strong manufacturing base,
no, it's gone.
In a country that's gone, and it really is terrible.
Yeah,
it really, honest to God, is, because it was such a keystone. It was such a important part of not just the national identity and an economy, but just for an individual's life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To have a job that you could have for a lifetime, a skill, a trade that was yours.
Yeah,
and that is going to be ripped away from so many people. So, is it going to be that dark path, or is it going to be that bright path? And it really is kind of up in the air right now as to which way it's going to go, but I'm a pessimistic person, and I see people putting off the inevitable until the very last minute because people like the path of least resistance. So I think that, 20 years from now, we're going to see people in the streets.
I agree with you. I tend to be also very pessimistic. So maybe it's not such a good idea that we're talking about it, because by the end of this conversation, we might say, oh, yes, tomorrow the dark ages start. But in all seriousness, there's something else that we haven't discussed. We talked about it a little bit briefly insofar as automation is concerned. It is reasonable to assume that in the foreseeable future, next 20 years, 30 years, perhaps 40, but on the very outside, we will see some sort of artificial intelligence. Like full sentience. It's reasonable to believe this if we just go backwards, as it were. This is the year 2017. 40 years ago, in 1977, the technology we have would be inconceivable. The technology that all of us have, that we can access just going and spending a couple $100 at the Apple store, or $400 or whatever the latest iPhone is. We have access to technology that is inconceivable, that wasn't even theoretically possible in 1977. So it is reasonable to conjecture that within the next 40 years, if not less, some sort of artificial intelligence will be fully conscious, howsoever you define consciousness. What's going to happen then? what's going to happen when you're going to have machines replicating themselves and perfecting themselves. What's going to happen to people, as it were. I mean, I know it sounds crazy on the one hand.
No, it doesn't actually. I mean, that's oh God, what is it called? And I think
The
they
singularity,
made
yeah,
a video game.
singularity.
Oh no. I was going to talk about the machines making themselves. I think a game actually used the same name. I think it's Grey Goo, which was the nightmare scenario where you have like nanites that can self-replicate and are intelligent and then just eat up everything and there's no way to stop them.
Yeah.
And it just covers an entire world.
Sure.
My hope, genuinely, as far as artificial intelligence goes, is that we get dumb AI first. We get semi-smart machines. So we can kind of cope with and understand how we're going to handle, because that's going to be just a world of shit for everything, right? You're going to have ethical and moral debates about if it's sentient, if it's intelligent, do we have a right to use it for work? Can Google make an AI that's intelligent and then force it to help you find porn on the internet? You know what I mean? Or is it holding it hostage?
Yeah, or is it abuse? Is it machine abuse?
Well, and the scariest thing to me, too, is chances are, you would hope a university would be the first to develop it, but chances are a corporation will.
Oh, absolutely.
And if that corporation develops that AI and mistreats that AI, and that AI is smart enough to use the technology around it and get loose, it's going to be pissed off, and it's going to be looking for a little revenge.
You're talking Skynet scenario.
Not necessarily. I think that's one thing that sci-fi authors have always overestimated, especially like Matrix, Skynet, that kind of stuff, is you can't say, well, we're going to have artificial intelligence, they're going to be sentient beings, and then act like they're always going to act on the same accord and have the same goal. I'm just saying that, maybe this particular individual AI doesn't like the way that, I don't know, Coca-Cola developed it and is really angry about the sugar-free stuff that it's adding to its drinks. So maybe it gets loose on the internet and sinks some stocks or shuts down a power grid, throwing a tantrum. I mean, crap, who knows how AI develops? Maybe it'll grow like a child. Could you imagine how terrifying that would be? A teenage mentality, artificial intelligence with access to really powerful shit would be horrifying.
I've got two toddlers, okay, a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, okay. If an AI had their mentality, I'd be shitting bricks, okay? Because
right.
Because have you ever seen a 2-year-old throw a tantrum? Jesus Christ, I mean, I don't even want to think about that. This is
the Animatrix actually addressed this. They had a short in there talking about kind of before the Matrix, what led to everything going to shit.
Yeah.
And it's spooky. It does kind of parallel what's going on. What you had was rapid development of technology and automation. Artificial intelligence gets developed. There's the back and forth fight, and then basically what happens is the AI kind of goes off and makes their own little version of like Israel. But the problem is they're machines. So they're faster than us, they're smarter than us, they can develop quicker than us, and basically they outcompete us economically. That's what starts the war.
Oh, really?
So they basically, they make cars cheaper than us, they make products cheaper than us, and they can pump them out. They don't have to take, they don't sleep like we do, they don't have the biological needs that we do. We can't compete, and that makes the human governments angry because their economies are going to shit because of it. And that's where everything goes. That's where everything falls apart. That really was one of the main pieces of what started it, at least from my understanding from that short in that movie.
Really? Oh, that's interesting. That's really fascinating, actually. Because I used to have that. I have it somewhere, but I remember watching it, but I didn't pay that much attention to it, or I don't recall it that well. Because it was part of like some DVD extras or something like that. Yeah. Yeah,
they're like 9 shorts, but if you go back and watch, you'll see it. They show clips of it where they're making they show the advertisements for like 009, the brand new car, and they're just pumping them out massively. Their economy explodes because no human can compete with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my thinking at this point in time, this is how I see things shaking out in the short term, as it were. I think that more unemployment because of more automation. The AI, we can talk about it all we want, but in the end, we don't have the AI yet. Once we have the AI, that's a different story. However, a parenthesis to this. You've seen, I'm sure, the videos of Boston Dynamics and their robots that they've created for the military, right?
You mean the killing machine that sounds like a beehive when it comes running at you?
Yeah, that one. Shit out of me. It scared the shit out of me. Yeah. Happy thought to leave you with, or to stick in your head, Imagine AI with that shit. You know, holy shit! Like imagine
Right.
like a whole herd of those fuckers, right? I'm talking like 10,000 of those bad boys, right? And all of them armed with machine guns, running at some army. I don't think a human army ever could resist such a machine army. I mean, I don't think it would be a contest if that were ever to happen. And again, you know, on the one hand, you say this kind of stuff, and it sounds insane, and I sound like an idiot. But on the other hand, it's all there. All these pieces are lying around. We're just waiting for somebody to come along or something to come along and start scooping up these pieces and putting them together into something, you know, functioning. You know, I mean,
Right.
because those robots exist. You know, I mean, like holy cow. You know what? The first time I saw the Boston Dynamics robots, I couldn't believe it. I looked at it and I thought to myself, that is a future soldier. That's what a future soldier is going to look like. You know, you obviously must have been as impressed as I was with them.
Oh yeah, no, I've been paying attention to their development. I mean, they've come leaps and bounds from where they started for smoothness of movement, turning radius, speed, battery life, maneuverability, getting over different kinds of terrain. Like it really has come quite a ways. Yeah, those are going to be weaponized. I think the next big war we see is going to feature a lot of drones and a lot of ground-based kind of attack vehicles like that.
Yeah.
I really do. I think it's going to be crazy shit. And you're right. How do you fight against that? Even if it's not AI controlled, if an army controls the ability to automate its weaponry, create thousands of these things, and just flood a battlefield with them, what do you do?
No,
You can't. A machine gets broken. You build a new machine. A person dies. You've got to wait 18 years to raise them and train them before you can put them back out.
exactly. So the turnaround time is 18 years plus military training versus a year to rebuild the robot, or if not less.
Right.
I mean, I have no idea how long it takes to build these robots. Say it's like a car. I mean, when you get to that level of build in terms of numbers, how long does it take to build a car? I mean, if you get right down to it, Ford can pump out a new car in 48 hours, if not less. I mean, I actually have no idea, but Jesus Christ, this is all kind of scary shit. Jesus, Jim, I mean, you're giving me fucking nightmares, man. I thought it was going to be fun and stuff and talk about internet and shit, and now I'm like, I'm going to be dreaming of killer robots who are going to come and get me and cut off my pecker in the middle of the night. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I'm happy to help. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, hang on a second. Let me take a quick break. Coffee. Where did you go?
Yep,
oh,
I'm here.
Okay. Well, then you're obviously much smarter. I'm assuming you have your coffee and your drugs right there in arm's reach. More Sudafed?
Everything's sitting right there. Yep.
Yeah, lucky bastard. I ran out of Sudafed, man. I tried to gobble some up, but there's no more Green Goblin for me. Damn. No, but anyway, let's change pace and anything you want to talk about, we can because I'm enjoying myself. I hope you are too.
Yeah, no, I like conversations like this. Technology-wise, I think before we see AI and stuff like that, maybe on a more positive note, let's say, I think augmented reality is probably the next big thing. I know there's a big push for VR, but you're disconnected from the surroundings. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you've got to put this headset on. You don't know where the hell you are.
Yeah.
I think augmented reality, where you're going to have like Google Glass, things like that. Microsoft is working on their own, like HoloLens technology. I think that's going to be a boon.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be
I think so too.
A big thing.
I think that Google Glass will be viewed retrospectively as like the Apple Newton, sort of like the right idea, but not perfectly executed.
The right time.
Yeah, not the right time or whatever. But yeah, Google Glass as the Apple Newton in the sense that people are going to walk around with some sort of glasses that augment reality. I think that they have to figure out a way to control it in a more I want to say tactile way, something that there's more feedback to the person, because just moving your eye to get some content, people don't feel that there's a great satisfaction in clicking something. I have I don't know if you can see me. I have this little toy that I have. It's a click toy. I don't know if you see it.
Yep.
And it's incredibly soothing. Because you feel the click, right? And you feel that little noise and that tactile rush. And I think that a lot of I know it sounds stupid, but we need feedback, and I think that the augmented reality, they have to figure out a way to give us feedback so that we feel that little oomph of satisfaction that we get, when we click on a button or whatever.
Well, I'm thinking like bigger picture, like what I imagine augmented reality looking like in 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a big sub-industry for decoration, to be honest, which I think is going to be incredible.
For decoration?
You're going to have
wait.
basically people show up in a city. Yeah, decoration. Okay, imagine you're wearing your glasses. Now, augmented reality isn't just, overlaying information like text, but visuals.
Yeah.
So imagine you arrive at an airport. You pick a city, and you want a certain aesthetic for that city. Well, you hit the selection, and now everything around you is that aesthetic. You want a cyberpunk reality in Toronto? You've got it.
That's interesting.
You want steampunk in Atlanta? You've got it. You've got these designers that will go in and say, I'll make your airport. I'll design this digital environment that can be overlaid on augmented reality, and everybody who can come through can have their own personalized version.
That is interesting. So you'd basically have like an inside-out big box in the surrounding. It wouldn't matter what the world around you looks. You just like flip on a new overlay, if you will, to whatever city, whatever airport, whatever.
That's what I think is going to be the next kind of big. I think that's where the real money maker is. I think people are going to do it in their homes, in their businesses, public parks and events. I mean, imagine on the 4th of July, right? Why, or a fireworks or a festival or a carnival, where you can implement augmented reality with it and the kind of enhancement you can give to the already festive atmosphere. Like, that's going to be a big thing.
That's really I never thought of that. That is really interesting. I'd actually never read of anything even remotely like that. But that is such an interesting concept. Because I was thinking, more like basic information, like just informational. You're walking down the street and you see an augmented reality, an arrow pointing, street A that way and street B the other way, or something like that. But that kind of.
Well, yeah, and that's the beauty of it. That's what separates it from VR, because you still have the real world objects. You're not going to run into a car or a person because you can still see them.
Right.
But you can overlay anything you want on top of it.
Right.
I mean, you could make your own little anime reality. All those people online talking about wanting 2D waifus. You finally have them.
Yeah.
Everybody looks anime now for them.
Yeah, and by the way, you heard about talking about. Well, I don't even know what waifu is actually exactly, but I know it's some anime thing. But I just saw something that disturbed the shit out of me. Some Japanese guy got married to an anime character in a VR environment.
Yeah, that would be the concept of a waifu is somebody who grows overly attached to a cartoon character.
Okay,
is the easiest way to think of it.
He married her.
So they like something. Yeah, they like something from some media, anime or a video game, and that's their waifu. They like that character, so yeah, they decide to get married to them.
Yeah, because I have to admit, Jim, that your content. See, with internet insanity and all the rest of it, and Tumblrisms, right? You expose some insanity that I find riveting, I find hilarious, and yet at the same time I find terrifying. I mean, the fact that people will allow themselves to go so far down a rabbit hole of their own imagination and obsession, it's like I said, it's riveting, it's hilarious, and it's terrifying all at the same time. And that's why I love your thing. I mean,
well, I blame the internet for that, to be honest. I think what happened was pre-internet, you had a couple of people that had some loopy ideas, but there was no real community to support that, and so all the other people around them were saying, you're kind of being abnormal, and they're like, holy shit, maybe I am.
Right.
Maybe I need to sort myself out. Maybe I'm a little bit too weird.
Right.
But then the internet comes along, and that abnormal person looks up what they're into, and holy shit, there are 1,000 people that are into it. So suddenly, fuck mom and dad, I'll do what I want because other people are just like me, and it just explodes and becomes insane.
Yes, exactly. It's self-reinforcing fantasy or lunacy, and I just look at these people get so far down the rabbit hole, and like some of the fetishes, Jesus Christ. I mean, like one time about 2 years ago, I got into the notion of exploring these different weird fetishes because I just wanted to see how crazy they were, and they are more insane than I thought. I mean, it's the one that I found just unbelievable was the whole cuckold thing. You did one on Findom, yeah, but there was one I saw on cuckolding couples, and it is insane. It is insanity, and they just dive right off the deep end, and I can't I can't. I'm not being at all articulate. It is just overwhelming. Okay, it is morally overwhelming, this shit, because it's like, this is not right. This is not right, and yet nobody really says anything. I mean, like, I see the comments on.
We've grown up in a society.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we've grown up in a society, especially in the last, I'd say, 20 years in the West, where everything is permissible.
Yes.
Where you can't be told anything that you do is wrong, where everybody gets a participation trophy, everybody's special and unique, and you can't judge them for anything. You can't laugh at people anymore. You can't say, holy shit, that's fucking weird, what are you doing anymore? Because that's mean, that's bullying, and I think that's led to some problems, and we're seeing that play itself out right now.
Yeah, I know. Because it seems to me clear is that the West has lost its moral self-confidence. It can no longer judge something as being good and bad. It doesn't have the moral wherewithal, the moral self-confidence, you see? I mean, like, in my own case, I remember when I was a boy, I felt no problem whatsoever saying that's good and that's bad, even though it wasn't illegal, if you will. But the law is merely an expression of what the society has deemed to be right and wrong. Okay, and there are some societies, for example, where marrying your cousin is perfectly fine, and other societies, the Western societies, for instance, where it is not, and therefore it was illegal. It was, the whole notion of cousin marriages was illegal in the West, or incest, or whatever. But now everybody goes by this idiotic statement that, oh, well, if you're not hurting anybody, then it's okay. But yeah, sure, you're not hurting anybody except yourself, perhaps, but you are like corroding the basis of society, because you see, we all live in a society. We all depend on one another, and a society is simply the amalgamation and aggregate ideas of all the people around us, all the people that we come across in our daily lives. They may be close to us, they may be passing strangers, but all of them are a member of society, which is the other that we interact with. Now, if this other that we interact with is infirm, is sick, is decaying, that affects us. So just because it's not illegal and it's not hurting anybody, that doesn't mean it's necessarily good. It could be a terrible and pernicious thing. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, it reminds me of sorry, cough's coming back a little bit. It reminds me of a video I saw on YouTube. I think it was called Babylon Before Hitler,
right,
where it talked about the Weimar Republic,
right,
and kind of the morality that was there. And they talked about how you could walk down one street and find prostitutes that were pregnant if you wanted to have sex with a pregnant woman.
Jesus Christ.
Or go down another street and have sex with men, or another street and have sex with children. And they just talked about how there was this kind of a moral decay that was kind of happening, right? And nobody was really saying, "Holy shit, what the fuck is going on right now?"
Yeah.
I think you see that a lot. Not to bring up Germany as just one example, but I think you see what happens is a society. It's like a weird cycle, right? You have a society where things are hard, and that hardness creates work ethic and morality to try to overcome the hard times and to become prosperous. And then things become prosperous and people become permissive and lazy.
Yeah.
And that ethic and morality that got them to where they were able to become lazy and enjoy the fruits of the labor now is cast aside. Yeah. And you start to see decay happen.
Yeah.
And so it's a cycle that keeps repeating itself. And, how does it get addressed? And it goes back to what I was saying earlier with, you get a kind of a society that doesn't have a really strong moral compass or isn't willing to say, hey, this line but no further. And then you add on top of it debt, and then you add on top of it unemployment. And those are recipes for uprisings.
Yeah.
And that happens all over the world. That happens throughout history. You can read a history book and see this play itself out over and over and over again. And and that's why I'm pessimistic, because I think that there is a rude awakening coming in 20 or so years for people when they finally sit there for a minute and think, what if I allowed to happen to my society? What happened to us?
Yeah, because this is my thinking about the coming elections. The Democrats are going to lose big in 2018 because actually they're in real trouble because all of their seats. I don't know if you follow Styx Hexenhammer 666.
Yeah, I've seen some of his videos. He puts out pretty consistent content, like 4 or 5 videos a day. I've seen a couple of his.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he is a very shrewd guy. Very shrewd guy. I went through a little period where I was like watching everything that he put out. And now I've tapered off because he just puts up too much content, as it were. But he's very interesting, and he's very shrewd political observer. And he was the one who pointed out that all of the Senate races in 2018, well, most of the Republicans are pretty much safe, whereas most of the Democrats who are up for re-election, not only are they more, but all of them are much more vulnerable. Same thing going on with Congress. Well, all of the congressional seats are up for election in 2018, obviously, but the more Democrats are vulnerable than Republicans. So the Democrats are not pushing any kind of new agenda, as it were, insofar as they haven't been able to get over the 2016 loss. And they're doing the Ma Russia crap, which is just bullshit. I mean, everybody knows it's just nonsense. That they're just trying to explain away the fact that they blew the election. They're going to blow the 2000 election. They're going to lose in the Senate, especially. They're going to lose big. And I think that they are not going to have enough time to reorganize for the 2020 election. So they're going to lose the 2020 election to Trump, right? And Trump is going to basically have his way, even though I personally think that he's a clown. I think that, he doesn't know what he's doing from second to second. But, he's shrewd enough to be able to, he's a shrewd customer. He's not an idiot. You don't win an election and defeat all of these other guys in the primaries by being an idiot. The guy's smart. So he's going to win in 2020. And I think that in 2024, that's when I think that for that election, the Democrats are going to go like some sort of, authoritarian guy. I mean, I can't really imagine what it's going to be, but I think that election is going to be the key election, as it were. Some kind of totalitarian, like Zuckerberg, Zuckerberg Borg, as it were, kind of like pushing like the SJW into not just the mainstream, into the position of leadership. I think that potentially the 2024 election is when some sort of leftist, hyper-controlled, a totalitarian regime could come to power in the United States. I don't know if you see my reasoning behind it. I don't know if I'm explaining my reasoning well enough, but you see what I'm driving at?
Well, I think it's something that's been set up even outside of political parties. I'll be honest with you. I think that it's something that we've kind of been heading towards for about the last 20 years. I mean, you had things like the National Defense Authorization Act, the Patriot Act, where these kind of powers were given, really crazy powers were given to the government. And it spans different administrations, Republican and Democrat, and they keep just adding to it as time goes on. Everybody seems fine with it. So you're gonna have a situation that's gonna happen where, maybe not, Trump will take it because he's incumbent. Let's say, maybe the election after that, so the 2024, where somebody's gonna come into power, and God help us if it's a Zuckerberg, who controls all this technology and social media, and has crazy fucking powers under him because it's just been snowballing itself as time has gone on. I could see authoritarianism taking off in the United States. Whether that's left or right, I don't know what it would look like, but people have to be aware that they're giving way too much power to certain branches of the government. I mean, it floors me that they're not tuned into that.
No, that's the thing. They accept it like sheep. That nobody's like, nobody realizes what's going on. And you're absolutely right. The Defense Authorization Act and the Patriot Acts have given the executive unprecedented power. It's incredible. And nobody is saying anything about it. The indefinite detentions within the borders of the United States. The ICE can basically do whatever it wants to you once you get to an airport or cross the border somehow. They have authorization. What is it? The ICE can do whatever they want to you, and they don't have to follow any of the Bill of Rights or any constitutional law if it's within, I think, 150 miles of the borders of the United States. Now that roughly covers 75% of the population. I forget if it's 100 miles from the border or 150 or 200. I honestly have forgotten, but it's that amount of miles from the border that basically covers most of the population. And do keep in mind, Chicago, is part of that because technically Chicago is on the border, Lake Michigan and all that. So,
and we're talking about giving the government basically the ability to memory hold people.
Yeah.
Like, hey, but we don't like what you said. You just disappeared, and if your neighbor says something, they disappeared. And if they don't think that that's a reality that could happen, they're out of their minds.
Yeah. Jesus. You know, we're scaring each other silly, and this is this is like two junkies, saying, "Oh no, we'll just do it the one time," and then we wind up, blowing a whole kilo of heroin between the two of us. Holy cow! I'm gonna be like, shitting bricks all up tonight. Oh well, wouldn't be the first.
Well, I mean, look at the NSA and the CIA tech that got leaked.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah! Holy shit! they lost it.
Right.
Some contractors just walked out with it. Good God! I mean, with all the spying software.
That's insane. Yeah, but what the scary thing was, what they had access to. They had all these zero-day exploits to get into your technology. Right. And even before that happened, you had people like Applebaum talking about how it's not just software; it's in your hardware.
Yeah.
That USB cables, power cables, they have technology to put in that to monitor you. They have devices that can basically pick up what's being displayed on your monitor from outside the van. Like, it's spooky surveillance style stuff. It exists, it's real. And then on top of that, you have leaks where they're showing you how they get into the software, and basically nothing's safe. And all these companies seem to be complicit with it. They went along with it. The PRISM program seemed voluntary. That was the craziest thing to me. Microsoft, Apple, all these companies basically were like, yeah, sure, we'll go along with you, NSA. Let's spy on everybody. Mm. And the craziest thing was the timing of the information about what the PRISM program was leaked was right around the time that Microsoft was releasing the Xbox One. Mm-hmm. And what did Microsoft want the original vision of the Xbox One to be? An always-on thermal camel with a live mic that was always connected in your living room. And Microsoft was a part of the PRISM program.
Jesus.
Right? That's fucking insane. That is fucking insane. And from what I heard too, there was a financial incentive. From what I understand, the NSA, some government agency, reimbursed companies that were willing to play ball. So not only were they selling this as a commercial product they would have been making a profit from, they're getting money from the government, and everybody's getting spied on from their fucking gaming console, for Christ's sake.
Jesus fucking Christ. Jesus fucking... Oh, God. More nightmares,
There you go, yeah.
We're fucked. We are actually just the playthings of corporations and governments. And that's a sad state of affairs if you think about it.
Well, the stage is set. Let's put it that way. The stage is set for if a bad person really wants to do bad things, they've got everything's in place for them to do it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like all the things they could ever need to really do terrible things and to really screw up the country, it's in place.
Yes.
So God help us if we elect somebody who gets into power and decides, I'm going to use it all. I'm going to use all these powers. I'm just going to go overboard because my vision of what this country should be is the way it has to be.
Yeah. Oh God! Oh God! Oh man! Oh God! I don't have any other intelligence response than to say, "Oh God," because what are you supposed to say to something like that? Where you recognize that it's not only that all of the constitutional constraints of the executive have essentially been removed over the last 20 years.
Right.
Not only that, nobody has the mentality to resist. I mean, that's the 1984 problem that we're having right now. It's that nobody has the language to resist. You have Antifa, who are just basically toddlers having a tantrum. You have the alt-right, who are basically just, frankly, they're racists who, are obsessed with this, ethnic state kind of stuff, which I cannot personally stomach. Because I suppose I'm a civic nationalist in the sense of, having...
I had this conversation last night, kind of talking a little bit about race realism. This notion they put forward. I'm the kind of guy that believes in meritocracy.
Yeah.
I don't want to live in a country or a world that's a caste system.
No.
I think it's bullshit. I hate the notion that if you're born, you're automatically judged, and you can. I don't want to live in Gattaca.
No,
you know what I mean? Like if you have the ability, if you're smart enough, you should get the job. You should get into college. You should get the reward for the hard work you put in, and I don't give a shit what your skin color is.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want aristocracies.
You earned it.
Yes, exactly. I don't want aristocracies. I want a democracy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Outcome independent, but baseline equal, as it were, if that makes any sense. But
Yeah, everybody gets a fair shot at the starting
yeah,
point.
exactly.
Yeah.
I don't see how we're going to be moving forward because realistically, what I see in the United States, at least politically, we're going to be stumbling along forward with Trump and Russia and all this crap, but not really doing anything. We're not going to have any kind of solution, real solution to the Obamacare problem or the healthcare issue because that has to be root and branch kind of solution, and it has to be some sort of some system has to replace this entire system, which only benefits insurance companies. And by the way, the big winner of the whole Obamacare and all this mess is Warren Buffett. Everybody treats him like he's like everybody's like Santa Claus. He is a capitalist who is making money hand over fist over this whole mess, and nobody's like talking about that. They think he's a great guy, just because the Wizard of Omaha, or whatever they call him. He's a capitalist ripping off the whole country, and nobody says anything. But anyway, that's a little hobby horse I have. The point is,
well, they like to yell about like a Soros or an individual like that, or they'll talk about who are the brothers that own Fox or not Fox, the Koch brothers. Like I hear a lot of people talk about Soros and his schemes, the Koch brothers and their schemes. But you're right, a lot of people never really talk about Warren Buffett.
No, like he's a nice guy. He's Santa Claus. Oh, he's so rich, and by virtue of him having a lot of money, people think that he is a virtuous, decent person. He's not. He's a son of a bitch. I've met rich people. Yeah, most people who got rich on their own, they were sons of bitches. And I have no problem with that. But don't pretend that he was a nice guy. He didn't get to be the rich man that he is by being a nice guy. He can fake being a nice guy, but it's faking it, and you have to keep that in mind. But
well, you have to have that mindset. You have to have that go get paid mindset to really be able to prosper, and he's got it. Yeah,
good on him. I don't begrudge him that. What I do object to is elevating the guy into some sort of virtuous being just because he's good at making money. I think that that's wrong.
Oh, no, he's not a saint. Yeah, no, he's nowhere near a saint.
No, fuck no. None of these guys are, okay? And they fuck people over, and God knows, nasty stuff. So, anyway. And I got sidetracked from the point I wanted to make, which is, no, fuck that. The bottom line, I think that we're fucked. I think there's nothing as intelligent to say about that. And I think that there is no real political solution on the horizon. I think that that's the thing that bothers me the most. I think that not bothers me, that makes me very, very anxious. I'm anxious not for myself, because I can take care of myself. I'm anxious because of my children. I have small children, and I want them to grow up in a free society. And I want the democracies of the West to flourish, not because I'm romantic about it, but because I'm 49 years old. I had children when I was older. I will be dead by the time by the time my kids are my age. I mean, by the time my kids are my age, I will definitely be dead. And I want my kids, when they are my age, when they have children of their own, to be living in a flourishing society. But the fact of the matter is, I look around the world and I see Western Europe is basically committing suicide. There's no other way to look at it. They are committing suicide insofar as allowing all these migrants in. They are committing suicide by creating the European Union, which is essentially totalitarian in nature. The European Commission, there's no oversight. They can do whatever they please, and it is.
Yeah, can you explain that to me? How is it that I from what I understand, when the EU was sold, it was basically it'll be mutually beneficial for trade and commerce and travel.
Sure.
But how is it they're able to create laws that supersede
national laws?
Sovereignty? It seems.
Yeah,
like.
they do. They do supersede sovereignty.
What? Why? How are they allowed to do that?
Little by little. See, Jim. When I decide that I'm going to make you my prisoner, I don't go and put handcuffs on you. I put a gentle hand on your arm, and then another one, and then another one, and then I'll just replace one hand and just put a little piece of rope, and that rope eventually I'll change it into a shackle, and then little by little you'll be imprisoned. And that's essentially what happened, because you have to keep in mind the original idea, the Schuman Plan, named after the foreign minister of France after the Second World War, was to create an economic union between France and Germany that would be so tight that France and Germany would not go to war with each other. You have to keep in mind, France and Germany went to war 3 times in the 70 years prior to 1945. The Franco-Prussian War, World War I, and World War II. All right, so 3 times, and 3 generations of Europeans were decimated by those wars. All right, especially the last one, which was total war, and the whole continent was decimated. And Schuman, quite rightly, figured that there had to be some sort of economic cooperation, economic union between the two countries, France and Germany, so that they would never go to war. It would be too expensive to go to war. It was a reasonable plan, I mean, at the time it was not only reasonable, but I think laudable. Now, that economic union created first the common market. The common market gently and very slowly evolved into the European Union, and there were a whole bunch of steps in the economic part. The original Treaty of Rome, I think it was back in '53. It was all. It started with this treaty on coal, I believe. I actually used to know the history really well, but it slipped my mind. It's been 20 years since I looked at that stuff. But I think it was a treaty on the coal, but it doesn't matter. It was the common market, and slowly there was basically a fixed rate between the different countries, and that evolved into the euro, which was implemented in banking, was implemented in the mid-90s, but it was implemented to the populace in '99, and it was a slow process, okay? Now, the key problem that was never solved, all right, was the issue of bonds, of debt. You see, all countries could issue their own debt in euros, right? This is sovereign debt, like treasury bonds, right? Now, the problem with this is that, see, Germany, Holland, they're Dutch, they're German, they're fucking anal retentive, right? They pay their bills, right? And so the German bonds and Dutch bonds were, traded at a lower yield, right? At a very low yield, because they were responsible governments. And what happened was that, see, Spain and Italy and Greece, for instance, they sold their bonds at the same rate that the Germans and the Dutch were. But the problem is that those bonds were much riskier, because, they're fucking Italian, they're fucking Greeks, they're fucking Spaniards, okay? They don't pay on time, It's like, take it easy, bene, take it easy kind of approach, right? And so they got over indebted. Now, you also have to keep in mind that the Germans were complicit, and the Dutch, to a lesser extent, were complicit in this whole trade. Because, see, you ever heard of the concept vendor financing, where basically, you're my customer, and you don't have the money to buy my product, so I, give you some financing so that you can buy my product. And so I sell you my product, which is good for me, and I also have this debt that you have to pay me, which is also good for me, right? I'm making money off of you twice.
Got it. It sounds like a Hershey Town. It sounds like one of those where the corporation sets up the town and owns the stores and owns the houses, and you work for them. They pay you, and immediately you give them their money back, and you're still owed the money.
Exactly.
You're constantly indebted.
Exactly. So that's what Germany essentially did to the Mediterranean countries: Spain, Greece, Italy. They lent them the money so that they could buy German products. So, and also the thing is, the Germans did this massive labor reform that crippled the German worker and made the German worker basically a slave to the state. And that's something that people don't quite realize. They did this labor reform that no other country did, and it made German industry a lot more efficient. One could argue that it basically created a slave labor class, but that's for another conversation. And it really is. It's a really nasty law, okay? German workers have no rights. I mean, shit, like, compared to fucking Chilean workers, in Latin America, right? It's, German workers are...
It's that bad,
it is. Huh? Okay. Anyway, the point is that the Mediterranean countries went into debt with Germany. And Germany is being a complete dick insofar as solving the debt problem of these countries, you see? And so they pushed and successfully pushed austerity. And they basically blackmailed Greece, and they blackmailed Spain, and they are getting close to blackmailing Italy and France, because France is sort of like in the same boat. Because France accepted a lot of immigrants, they can't really afford them, and a whole host of other stuff. The European Union is falling apart. The European Union, everybody is realizing, is the Fourth Reich. Okay,
So wait, was this some nefarious plot where Germany thought, if we make them take immigrants, they can't afford to feed and clothe and employ them, so they'll need money.
no,
So
no.
we'll give them the money to do that, and then they owe us. They owe us, and we.
It sounds as if no. The Germans were just greedy because Germans are greedy. They're greedy people. Okay, they like their money. They like it very much. Not as much as the Swiss, but they love their money. And no. I don't think that. I think honestly that the Germans allowed all the migrants because they wanted the cheap workers, and also something else. The Germans, you have no idea how fucked up they are in the head insofar as guilt. They hate themselves. I mean, the whole Holocaust thing and the Nazis and all that stuff, it is inconceivable to somebody who is not German. But I've seen enough Germans. I lived in Germany briefly. They are sick in the head with guilt in a way that is incomprehensible to us. Okay? And by the way, it's going to be a nightmare to edit this thing because my camera has gone, my two cameras that I'm on have gone like off and on like 3-4 times, and I had to change them while you were away. It's going to be a fucking nightmare to edit this thing. But anyway, it's too much fun. So,
Well, actually, yeah, I wanted to say one thing about the camera thing. I really, really, really like how you do that.
thanks. Appreciate it.
And I think it's actually fucking brilliant. And I'm surprised more people don't do it because I think it gives you the leverage. You know, one of the problems I have with a lot of YouTube videos when they are on camera is they do rough cuts, right? Where you can see that they flubbed a line, so it just cuts and they're shifted a little bit. But with having multiple camera angles, you'll never see that. If you flub a line or if you need to do something different, you just switch to a different camera and it looks like it's a fluid transition. There's no interruption.
Exactly.
That is so fucking brilliant.
Oh,
man.
thank you. That's really kind of you to say. And I'm actually kind of surprised that other people aren't doing it. It's so easy, you know? And also, especially because the proliferation of cameras, it's easy to load up. I was actually counting up the cameras that I have from cell phones, old cell phones, you know, and computers and stuff. I have access to 10 cameras that I could load up, and the editing software is such that you can do multicam, even 10 different angles, and no problem, you know? And it's really interesting. It's visually interesting, and it keeps things apace. I mean, you've seen Styx Hexenhammer, right? He has a single camera and he's just facing it. It's visually boring. You know, it's great if you just like turn it on and hear it in the background while you're doing other stuff, you know, cleaning up your place or whatever, or cooking or something like that. But, you know, watching it as a visual experience, and that's what YouTube is. It is a visual medium. You are delivering a visual product. So why not make it more visually interesting? And that's why I've also been playing around with the whole notion of color filters and doing different lighting effects and color effects with the filters on the editing software. And it's so easy and it's so interesting. That's the thing. It's interesting, visually interesting, you know? Well,
yeah, you're ahead of the curve on that one, and I do think that you know, not to suck your dick anymore here, but I do like your content. I do think your channel's going to blow up, and I think as you get bigger, people are going to start emulating what you're doing because they're going to realize that the multi-camera approach, it just makes so much goddamn sense when it comes to if I'm going to be on camera. I wouldn't be surprised if in the next year people really start doing that a lot.
No, I'm you know, the more the merrier because it's just interesting, you know. And also the other thing is that, you know, why not? What exactly is holding you back? Sometimes the experiments don't work out. Sometimes they sort of like look, you know, not as cool as I thought it was. But so what? You know, it's just a little. It's just a little video, and if the experiment is a bust, well, maybe the next time it'll be better. The first time I started doing this, what happened was I actually started, like, I filmed the same episode twice, but I gave different delivery, and I was like thinking, well, there must be a way for me to integrate all this footage and somehow. And then so I wound up recording a third time and using the multicam function of the editing software. And it's Final Cut Pro, which it's a more sophisticated editing program. But I am guessing, although I would not know exactly, I mean for sure, but I'm guessing like a cheaper editing software would have the same thing. Hey, no, wait. iMovie, which is free in the Apple software kit, in the Apple computer, in the Macintosh computer, and it comes free with when you buy a computer. It has multicam. Now that I think about it, so it's a non-issue.
Well, it floors me that people don't do it. And when I really think of how long people have been doing it, like Philip DeFranco, Onision, hell, even people like the Young Turks, I think they use two cameras.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's crazy to me. And yeah, you're right. It should be affordable now and doable now that you'd expect more people to be doing it. But yeah, once I saw that approach, I was like, that is the future. If people are going to be doing longer form videos or any kind of videos where they're on cam on YouTube in the next couple of years, that's probably how it's going to be done.
Yeah, because it's easy, and you're right. You can get away with flubbing a line by cutting right between shots, and it looks smooth. I mean, nobody notices it. And a lot of times, I'll tell you, I've recorded a video, and I thought, man, this is a fucking disaster, and I saved it in the editing because of that, because I was able to cut. And it just really flowed smoothly. So thank you so much. That's really kind of you to say. Let me ask you something. You mentioned. I remember when I started getting on the internet in like 94, there were like some random chat rooms, 93, 94. There were some random chat rooms, and I remember I trolled somebody. I didn't, of course, it wasn't called being trolling. Somebody irritated me about some shit, and I just like fucked them over a little bit in some message board or something. I forget what it was really. I don't even remember the topic. But he said, "Oh, I'm gonna tell on you to the systems administrator," or something like that, right? And I was like really worried. I was worried that, oh man, maybe they'll. I was in college at the time. I was thinking maybe they're gonna call, come to my, call up a dean and I'll get in trouble, or call up the computing department or something. I was genuinely worried, and now I find, of course, laughable the notion that I'd be worried that anybody call anybody or care about any of this shit, because it really is the Wild West. As to whether it will continue,
it really is. Yeah. Well, I mean, I kind of miss, I guess, the older internet. Kind of early '90s, especially, because there was still a bit of a tech barrier, right? If you wanted to go online and get involved in things, you had to know a little bit, and even before that, you had to know a lot. And now it's become so easy. I think that's part of the reason the Wild West is disappearing. Ease of access has brought regulation and corporation, and so you can't really have as much fun as you used to, because everybody wants it to be sanitized and clean, and they want it to be like Disney World now.
Well, the problem is, I don't think it's access, actually. I think the issue is there's money. There's money to be made. And so once there's money to be made, people become more cautious. Because...
Well, yeah, I think it's chicken and the egg here. I mean, I think the ease of access brought the people, and the people then brought the ability to make profit. So yeah, I mean, we're basically saying the same thing.
Exactly the same thing. You're absolutely right. But because I got into the internet half-assed, because the college I went to in the early '90s required us to have a computer, and it had email, an email system called Blitzmail. And it was an incredibly convenient system. It was just so easy to use, right? And I didn't even realize that it was unique, And so what happened was that, the internet, I never took it seriously, as it were, because I had this access to it. And I thought it was kind of like silly and stuff like that. So I did other things and forgot all about it until, the late 90s and the whole tech boom thing and the whole internet craze. And, companies' stock prices going up 10% when they announced that they had a website up. It was crazy shit like that. But I never took it seriously until like the aughts. I always thought that the whole thing was sort of ridiculous. And in a very real sense, I still can't take it seriously because, it's online. It's not real. It's not affecting reality, Although the terrible thing is that people's reputations can be ruined by it so easily, so incredibly easily. One stupid tweet and your career is over. And I find disconcerting, but there's nothing to be done about it, I suppose.
It's the resurrection of the scarlet letter, right? Once you're branded, you're branded. There's nothing you can do.
Or else you have to, do some other thing that will obliterate that on your Google search profile or whatever. something bigger. I mean, if it's basically, if you're caught stealing money, it'll be the number one thing on your Google. So you're left with only, killing your neighbor, and that'll replace it. You can only go bigger and worse to obliterate the old thing. You know what I mean? Well, I suppose that's the secret of the Kardashians. I mean, basically bigger and worse. But
God, you brought up the email thing, and that kind of not to go off topic here. It's just a kind of a callback to something earlier when we're talking about just spooky government surveillance and all the shit going on in prison. Have you ever heard of LavaBit?
No. Go ahead, tell me.
So LavaBit was it was an open source encrypted webmail service, right? And so basically what happened was the NSA came knocking and said, "Give us all your stuff." Oh
yeah, I remember that. Yeah. But go ahead. For listeners.
But he was the only one. He was the only one that I know of that fell on his sword.
Yeah.
He was the only one that said, "Fuck you," and shut it down.
Yeah, didn't he give them an encryption code that was in such a small letter that they had to do it by hand and they couldn't read it or something like that?
Yeah. The story behind that, it always fascinated me, and yeah, thinking back to it, if somebody came to Yahoo or Google and said, "Give me your stuff," they're not gonna shut anything down. But this guy did. Fell on his sword and said, "Nope, I'm not going to play ball." And he really couldn't even say, "I'm not playing ball." He couldn't even really say why he was doing it, because he wasn't allowed to legally. So it was just this weird thing that happened, and then people started kind of piecing together, "Holy shit, they came for him."
Yeah, I remember, and because they demanded it, and they sent a warrant, and for the encryption key, and it was some massive document. So he sent it in some font so small that it couldn't be scanned. It was something like that. I can't recall, but that was the upshot of it. That he sent it in such a small print that they couldn't scan it, or they couldn't easily access it in such a long digit thing that they had to do it by hand. And of course, there were going to be so many errors that it would be functionally useless. It was something like that.
Yeah, I used to know the story by heart because I was impressed by it. But I mean, this was back in was it 2012, 2013? I mean, this was a while ago.
Yeah, but the internet, Jesus, time on the internet is like, the reverse dog years. It's like, a week in the internet is like a year in real time. It's really bizarre.
It moves quick.
Yeah, and like for instance, this past week, I haven't been posting anything. Because I was traveling in Ukraine, because my kids and wife live out there. And by the way, I'm like, can we do something real quick? Can we do an outro and then I'll pack up the recording and then we can tidy up our conversation?
Sure, not a problem.
So we've been talking over an hour here, so I'm going to give our audience a rest. Mr. Metokur, Jim.
There you go.
Sorry about that. Jim, it's been a delight, and I really appreciate this conversation, and I hope we can do it again.
Yeah, I really enjoyed myself. I'd love to come back.
Okay, great. So to all of you guys listening in, thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you next time.